The late 19th, early 20th century painter John Collier is a far more subtle, thoughtful, innovative, dark, and even audacious artist than he's given credit for. Part of the neglect is that Collier did a lot of conventional commission portraits, and it's easy to get lost in them. But let's look beyond commission portraiture and see what Collier was really up to. This is his 1909 portrait of Vittoria Corombona, the White Devil, in the Jacobean play of that name by John Webster. In 1909, when Collier painted this, the 17th century Jacobean theater was very much in vogue, with its incessant plotting for personal gain or for lust, and Machiavellian intricacies of layered deceptions and constant murder, and that struck a chord in early 20th century playgoers. Collier's image of the White Devil, Vittoria Corombona, looks regal and poised and even self-possessed. But Collier reveals the skull beneath the skin, because what resembles rosary beads and should have a devotional and pious cross at the end instead has a hinged poison container with a skull on one side and a mask on the other. Open it up and you unleash worlds of mayhem. And what a fitting image to adorn the cover of this 1914 book on Collier. You can hear doom's clock ticking, June, July, August 1914, and the world begins to fly apart into years of carnage and the bleeding out of whole generation. In a play about deceit and poison, Vittoria's words, "I discern poison underneath your gilded pills," is strangely fitting for a world about to explode. Collier was fascinated and I think really smitten by strong, willful women who stepped utterly outside the conventions of their own time, flouting Victorian or Edwardian conventions as well. And some of these strong women, like Vittoria, had blood on their hands. Collier painted the Greek murderess Clytemnestra twice, portraying her just moments after slaying her husband Agamemnon and his lover Cassandra. Clytemnestra's fierce indignation and pride is evident in her ramrod posture and expression, and Collier draws the viewer in close with blood dripping from the axe onto the floor, making a small waterfall over the step and puddling shockingly below. There was a lot of poisoning in the Victorian sensation novel, still popular in the 1890s, and some of that carried over into the poems of Robert Browning. In Collier's The Laboratory, inspired by Browning's poem of that name, his fascination with indignant and lethal women rises to a fevered pitch. Poison in trade for jewels. It's like a novel on canvas, a scene from a sensation novel or murder mystery. As Browning writes, "Gaze through these faint smokes, curling whitely as thou pliest thy trade in this devil's smithy, which is the poison to poison her." Interestingly, in the linkage of the White Devil, she is reaching for poison with one hand and has a mask in the other. And why not? She's ready for the evening's costume ball, and someone is going to have a very bad night. The fin de siècle, or end of cycle 1890s, was fascinated by the figure of Circe. Circe became at the time an emblem of feminine powers with her sorcery, skill with potions, and ability to transform men to animals. Painters would stress her role as femme fatale or stress her otherworldly spell-casting witchiness. And her ability to transform men to swine or other animals had quite an appeal in the decadent 1890s imagination. The painter John William Waterhouse had enthroned Circe at the moment she first encounters Odysseus. Her power is very much on display in that painting, with her riding crop and elevated position, and it celebrates her not only as a femme fatale, but a sort of 1890s dominatrix. In contrast, Collier's Circe exhibits such relaxed and joyful intimacy, with her men transformed to beasts that seem quite happily adjusted to their animal state. Collier gives us a visual exploration of Circe's love as much as her witchy powers, and most of all, her ability to create a world full of meaning in her island isolation and exile. In that sense, Collier's work is really a more powerful Circe who has successfully transformed her island of exile into a quite lovely world of her own making. Collier was fascinated by all female powers that reach out in unconventional directions. His portrait of the Delphi oracle has the priestess literally breathing in the fumes of of myth and the collective unconscious and the earth. Another powerful female figure that seized Collier's imagination was Lilith. In the first and second chapters of Genesis, we are given two quite different accounts of the creation of human beings. In Genesis 1, Adam and Eve are created equally out of the dust of the earth. But then, in Genesis 2, Adam is first created alone, and only after that is Eve created from Adam's rib. Lilith evolved through the whole Mishratic tradition of biblical interpretation as really the first Eve, who literally fled when Adam tried to assert his superiority. It sounds bizarre, but one ancient commentary has Lilith rejecting Eden because Adam would not let her sometimes be on top during sex. Collier's version of Lilith is extraordinary. The snake's head is resting between her neck and shoulder, just as the head of a lover might rest. Visually, the two bodies are so entwined they almost melt together. And it feels warm rather than menacing, and there's a closeness and a sensuality about it. In a visual sense, Lilith takes on the full power of the snake, not only melding earthly powers, but infusing them in a sense of beauty and erotic appeal. Snake and Lilith melting together. And it's no longer Satan in the snake poisoning the ear of Eve. Lilith is on good terms with the snake, as if she had taken on its powers. Again, earthly or chthonic powers flood from her. There seems such a gathering of primal forces here. Lilith and the snake seem powerfully at home in each other. And this is Collier's Lady Godiva, who in the 11th century rode a horse naked through Coventry in protest of her husband Leofric's excessive taxation of his tenants. Strength and vulnerability gorgeously interfused. The taxes were lowered, and Lady Godiva remains a heroic figure in Coventry. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.